today we're just going to be talking about the current plan you have on your device and just what it is, so you have context, review option for other internet services, and review resources available for finding the best internet plan for you and your needs. So your current data plan is a cellular data plan, right? So if you would look carefully on your device, if you've never took note of this before, you have this little slot somewhere on the side. It kind of looks like this. And you put this little pin in it and it pops it out. And you just have a little SIM card. It's just a little tiny chip. And that's your internet. It connects you to a cellular data network through a phone provider, basically. That connects you to cell towers, which connects you to the internet. That means that your device can connect to internet wherever you have a cellular data signal. It means your internet is portable and you can use your iPad anywhere. I also know that you have a unlimited data plan. That means the amount paid just gives you unlimited data for a month. You'll never run out. That's not the case for all data plans. You can buy unlimited data plans, or you can buy a certain amount of internet each month. And those can be cheaper depending on how much internet you use. And so those kinds of things are key things to think about, and we'll start to go through them. But to recap, you currently have a cellular data plan that's on a SIM card in your device. It is an unlimited cellular data plan. It uses a cellular network. And so internet options. So I'll talk about kind of 4 internet options. They're kind of 2, but there's 4 different ways of using them and connecting to them. So first you have a cellular data plan, which is what you currently have, right? It's a little SIM card that goes into a device. If you have a cell phone that has internet, it's the same thing on there. The difference being that with your iPad, you just don't have calling on it. It's not set up for that. You can have it, but it's not a primary use. It's just the internet portion of the cellular plan. You can also use portable routers, and those use cellular data. So if you're familiar with like at-home Wi-Fi, where you have a box that sends out the internet signal using Wi-Fi, a portable router is basically a portable Wi-Fi box that uses cellular data. And it's just an option if you are connecting multiple devices or anything like that. And then there's, of course, at-home Wi-Fi, which connects to the internet that you have in your home or building. So whatever the plug-in, whatever provider is there, you just use a router then to send a radio signal out that connects your devices to the internet. And then you can use public Wi-Fi networks, which work the same as the at-home networks, but there are certain things to consider when using public Wi-Fi networks, which we'll review, because there are safety issues sometimes with them, and we just want to be conscious of those things. So those are kind of the breakdown of the 4 main ways that you can connect to the internet through a cellular data plan, portable routers, which use a cellular data plan, at-home Wi-Fi, and public Wi-Fi networks. So we'll talk first about what the difference is between using a cellular data internet and a Wi-Fi enabled internet. So a data plan and a Wi-Fi network, basically, they let you do the same thing, right? They let you use and connect to the internet wirelessly without having to plug in. You need wireless internet because the iPads only are capable of connecting wirelessly, right? There's no plug in them that allows you to connect to an Ethernet cable in the wall. They require wireless internet. But to break it down, the difference is that Wi-Fi is an internet connection that uses a router. So that little box, sometimes you'll see that emits Wi-Fi signals, and it uses that to connect devices wirelessly to a building's plug-in internet connection. Sometimes they plug into your like phone line, or sometimes they plug into this little circular kind of plug in your wall, and that's how they connect the Wi-Fi and the internet and send out that signal. Cellular data is an internet connection that uses cellular signals and towers to connect you to the internet. So if you're near a tower, your phone would ding to that nearest tower, and it connects to a satellite and connects you to internet. To break it down, the main difference being that cellular data is portable and Wi-Fi is not. You can move around with cellular data. Wi-Fi is built into a building, home, wherever you're at. And so now the pros and cons of both. So cellular data plans, the pros are, of course, that it is portable. You can connect wherever your provider has coverage. So you can connect in your home. You can connect if you're out. Maybe you're out driving and you want to use the map feature on the device to use as like a portable GPS. Or if you're traveling, you're visiting family, you don't have to worry about connecting to a network. You're always connected just as long as you have coverage. So of course, then if you're in a more rural area, that might become an issue in terms of how strong your network connection is. It's automatic. There's no need to sign into a network, so your device remains constantly connected. So you're not going to a new place having to ask what the Wi-Fi password is and connect wherever you're going. You just always have it. No sharing. And this I list as a pro just because you don't have to share the data and deal with slow speeds from someone else using heavy data on the network. If you're using a Wi-Fi and it's in your home, and say you have multiple people living at your home and someone's streaming a TV show while you're trying to stream a movie, that can be a big burden on the amount of data you have. It can slow down connection. So you don't have to worry about sharing that connection with other people on your network. And choice. You can choose any network provider you would like with cellular data. With your internet, it's kind of limited to whoever the provider is in your area. So with cellular options, you just have more choice. The cons, the speed. So though you can get, like LTE and really high internet speeds for a cellular data plan, higher speeds can be attained from Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi is generally faster than a cellular data plan, though those speeds are becoming, more and more competitive, and you can still probably get high enough speeds for a lot of the things you would be doing. But if you're downloading a lot of stuff, uploading a lot of stuff, a cellular data plan might just not cut it as well. Coverage limitations. So again, depending on where you are, you might experience bad or weak signals. This can depend on, of course, the carrier. So we'll go through kind of how to look at that, because you can look at coverage maps and you can see how good coverage for certain providers are in certain regions and areas. But coverage limitations are something to think about with a cellular data plan. And no sharing. This is also a con. You alone can use the data on your phone, so you can't connect multiple devices at the same time to the same internet, right? It's just for your device. So say you got another device, maybe a computer or whatever it is, if there's no Wi-Fi to connect it to, it can't connect to the internet. So you'd have to have a separate plan for that or whatever it may be. And portable routers. So this is kind of goes into with the cellular data plan. So a portable router is like this small little box. It acts as a Wi-Fi router, but it uses cellular data. They have to be charged. So there's a limitation in that. But again, like Wi-Fi, you can connect multiple devices for them and you can use them wherever you go. So they're portable, just like a cell phone or just like your current data plan is on your iPad, but you can use them to connect to multiple devices. So this is always an option. It's not as common. People don't really necessarily use this a lot as their primary internet connection. Often people use this when they have home Wi-Fi and they just want maybe a plan that they can pay as they go for and use when they're traveling to visit family or going on a trip or something like that. And at-home Wi-Fi, pros and cons. The pros of an at-home Wi-Fi network are speed. Again, you can generally reach higher internet speeds using home Wi-Fi than you can using a cellular data plan. So depending on what you're doing on your device, if you're streaming a lot of TV, stuff like that, that would require more speed and something that you might think about. Cost. Often at-home internet plans are cheaper than using cellular data. So if that's a consideration and you're not using your device a lot outside of the home, then something to think about there. And then sharing. You can connect many devices to an at-home Wi-Fi network. So you can connect your iPad to it. If you had another device that you wanted to connect to it, you could. If someone came over and they needed to use internet, whatever it may be, your grandkids out, come over and they want to connect to the internet, you can connect many devices to a Wi-Fi network. So that's a pro of it. Cons, it's stationary. You can only use that connection when you're at home. And then you might have to then depend on public networks if you're using your device outside the home. There are limited options. So what provider you have is usually dependent on your area and building. So you'd have to look that up, and basically whoever the provider is for your specific building or area is what you kind of use for the most part. There's not as many options. And sharing, again, this is a pro and a con. If you have a lot of people in one household using the same internet, it can bog down the network. So depending on that, you may end up having to pay more for higher internet volumes, or else just deal with slower internet speeds if a lot of people are connecting to the same network. And then tagged onto this is the issue of public Wi-Fi networks. So public Wi-Fi networks are kind of everywhere. There's almost nowhere you can go now where you can't connect to a public Wi-Fi network, which is great. And it uses the same technology as at-home Wi-Fi, just on a larger scale. But for that reason, they can be slower than, say, using a home network. There might be a lot of people on those networks. Generally, they have limitations in terms of the amount of internet you can use. If you've ever been connected to the internet, say on a plane, and you have two options, you can use the browsing pass or the streaming pass. It might limit these certain activities that you can do because they don't want you to go over a certain amount of data use on their free network. They can also present a danger. So because they're public open networks, they a lot of the time don't have passwords, or they just require kind of simple authentication to join. Harmful actors can use these networks to steal data from other users. Of course, there are ways to protect yourself on these networks and minimize or eliminate risk from using them. But it is something to consider. There's certain things you never want to do on a public Wi-Fi network. That being said, I wouldn't say never use a public Wi-Fi network if you need to. I use them. I haven't been hacked to my knowledge, but you just, you do run the risk, but there again are ways to minimize that risk when using those networks. So to sum that up, if you are using your device a lot outside of the home, traveling around a lot and using it on the go, potentially a cellular data network is a better choice for you. But if you're mostly using it in the home and only using it outside of the home on select occasions, not that often, then a home Wi-Fi network might be a better choice. And again, it can often be slightly cheaper. The one big thing that you need to consider when you are purchasing internet is how much internet do you need, and how much speed do you need. So I've put two kind of tools in here that I'll show you, and then I'll try to get this actual PowerPoint out to you after, so you have the links to these resources, or else I'll put them in the chat at the end, so you can have these links. But there's this internet speed quiz, which is really great. If you fill it out, it shows you basically how much internet you might need, depending on your activities online, how many people are using it. And there's also this speed test thing by Ookla, and it basically shows you how fast your internet is. So it's a bit different. It just tells you at any given moment how good your internet is. And so if you're really satisfied with your internet, you can look at that and say, okay, this is a good enough level for me. But we will fill out this quiz and I'll show you how it works. So this quiz, basically, it's at smartmove.us. It's a really great resource for making sure you have, the best internet connection. So smartmove.us. So you can fill out this quiz, say just you or one other person. Next, how many devices, right? What type of devices are you using? So you use it, daily. How many people in your house? 0 to 2 maybe. And then it will show you the speed. And so then when you are then looking at providers, right? One of the things when you're looking at different plans, it will say, connect up to this speed, or this is the limit of your speed that you have. And so that's going to be kind of the mark that you're trying to hit. And then the other thing I had here is a speed test. This is just a site that shows you, it'll tell you what network you're on or whatever, and it will show you your internet speed. So at any given time, so you can see that my internet speed right now is at 28. If I then go to my internet service provider, I can like compare these numbers to what numbers they're saying about like what speeds this internet gets up to. So other things to consider when buying the internet. And this stuff was kind of covered in that quiz that we did too, but it's, who will be using the internet? And based on who's using the internet, what activities do you or do they like to do on the internet? If you're primarily using your device for just surfing the web, for doing Google searches, email, and that's really the kind of limit of what you're doing, then you probably don't need that much internet. If you're watching a lot of movies and a lot of TV using streaming networks, that takes up more data. You might need a larger network, right? So it just depends on what you're doing. And where do you primarily use your device? Again, are you using your device primarily at home? Or are you using it out and about? So where do you need to have that connection? Can you just have it at home and that's enough? Or do you need to have the cellular data plan so you could be mobile? And also, if you're going to go with a cellular data plan, is there a way that you can, if you have a cell phone, can you tag onto an existing cellular plan and bundle? So if you already have a cell phone plan, you may want to talk to your provider and see if there's options for bundling devices and getting a lesser price for two connections if you're bundling it, or if you have multiple family members, and family plan bundling is also a great way to save money on a cellular data connection. So different options there. And then also just what are your cost limitations? And I just put this in here, and again, I'll try to get you this slideshow, but here's just an example of what like the different internet needs are for different activities. When you are actually looking at a plan, you can kind of compare what you're looking at on what they list as the options when you're choosing a plan to these numbers here. So if you're just surfing the web, so like I said, doing Google searches or just going on kind of normal websites, news websites, stuff like that, you would need a minimum of 2 megabytes per second. Definitely not more than 5 or so. Streaming YouTube, 20 megabytes per second for 4K video resolution and 5 megabytes for HD. So those are just different qualities. 4K is obviously higher quality than HD 1080p. Streaming music is a minimum of 0.5. So streaming music actually doesn't use that much internet, less than surfing the web with how websites are built these days. So streaming music, you don't need that much. Playing online video games, 3 megabytes per second, and then streaming services, watching movies and TV online, kind of the biggest eater upper of our data. 5 megabytes for HD on Netflix, 25 for 4K, Hulu's 3 megabytes per second for HD, 16. These things vary. And then Zoom video calls, what we're doing right here. So for one-on-one video calls, of course, this also changes when we're on these group calls. It's going to be kind of 8 megabytes per second for just a standard video call. And if you're doing group calls, you would probably amp that up to a bit higher there. So that is kind of the different internet speeds for different activities that you might be using and common things that we do online. So choosing your at-home internet, like I said, this often is just dependent on your building or where you live. Services connect to certain areas, that's just what you get. But if you're unsure what your home internet provider is, again, another great tool from smartmove.us. If you go on their website, just their main website, the first thing you see is get connected. All you have to do is put in an address. Just found a random address here. So we can put this in here and say, get connected. And basically what it does is it takes you directly to the internet page of your internet provider. And right away, you're sent here. And you can, say, are you signing in? No, I'm a new customer. and you can, view deals depending on however they set this up. And you start to look at your plans and what you need here. So this is a great resource for just figuring out and getting started. And if it is at all confusing to you, they do have a phone number. They're super helpful for figuring out what you need and how to connect. So do give them a call, and they do have resources for mobile internet as well. So they're just a great way to look into, what you need. So if you're trying to do research, this is a great place to start. And then choosing a cellular data plan. So if you're going to go with the cellular data route, you can check a coverage map. So I put one here too. So uscellular.com has this coverage map. Again, a lot of this is about doing the research. So you can look at the map and you can see what the coverage is here. But you can also search here. And you can see if the coverage is good. And this is important to know because if you're looking at this, and that's like your general neighborhood, so your general neighborhood only has like 3 gigabytes of coverage. That's not that strong of internet. So in that case, you might just go, if I'm using my data plan mostly at home, I'm gonna have faster internet to use an at-home Wi-Fi network rather than going with a cellular data plan. Higher number is more internet, better internet, faster internet. The same plans that you can use for your cellular data coverage can be used with a portable router, so consider that. As I said before, you can consider tagging onto an existing cellular plan to save on bundling. But most importantly, do your research. So like I said, with the at-home Wi-Fi, you're kind of limited. But with a cellular data plan, there's tons of options. There's so many networks in the States. So do your research and find what the best plan is for you. Another thing is just to ask people if they like their plan, if they find that the coverage is reliable, like especially in your neighborhood. What's your data plan? Do you think that the coverage does it go out a lot? Is it shoddy? Is it good? And see what they say, because that's kind of the best way to figure out how it works in certain areas. But to review kind of the big players in terms of options, we have Verizon. This is the largest US carrier. They offer 4 prepaid plans and 3 postpaid plans for data on tablets. So these are specifically plans for tablets that we're referring to. So there's 4 prepaid plans and 3 postpaid plans. So lots of options here. The prepaid options run from $30 to $65 a month, depending on the data amount. And postpaid plans accounts prices start at $10. So postpaid plans are generally can start at cheaper prices because they depend on you going in overages and stuff like that, right? And there's a link here to those plans if you want to check them out so you can find out more detail about them. AT&T is the second largest carrier in the US. They offer 3 prepaid tablet plans. They range from $25 to $75 per month. And AT&T's current wireless plans for tablets start at $40 a month with some options, including unlimited data. So slightly different there. But again, you would want to read more about it on their site if that's something of interest. T-Mobile also now owns Sprint, so they're the same. So if you've ever had Sprint, just know that together now. They offer post and prepaid options. The prepaid plans start at $10 a month and go up to $50, depending on how much data you want. And postpaid plans start at $60. So T-Mobile is a slightly cheaper option. And then this one is just, I kind of randomly put this one in here, but important or interesting to know. This is not something you would use all the time, but this is just an alternative carrier to make aware of. And there's other things like this, but it's just called GigSky. It's one of Apple's international travel options for iPad cellular data. So say you are traveling, maybe you're traveling back home for a month to visit with family, and maybe you're not from the States or wherever you're going. They piggyback on existing cellular networks across the world. So basically, say you came to Canada, they would piggyback on like our networks, which are like Rogers and Bell, and they would jump on to them and give you coverage wherever you're going. So it will depend on the pricing where you're going, but they just have deals with all these different providers across the globe. So if you do end up traveling at some point and you're going to be moving around a lot, just something to be aware of as an option. Coming back now to using public Wi-Fi networks. So when you're using your cellular data plan and you're using your home Wi-Fi network, those are pretty secure. You don't really have to think about some of these things so much. Of course, we always want to be protecting ourselves online, making sure that we're using strong passwords, that we're protecting our data, stuff like that. But this is especially important when we are using a public Wi-Fi network because we're not protected on those networks and a lot of people can be on them. So on a public Wi-Fi network, there's a couple things that you should never do. You should never shop online on a public network because you will be putting in credit card information and all sorts of info. And you should, of course, never log into your bank accounts or input any bank or card details in any shape or form when you're on a public Wi-Fi network. And not listed here, but like, you just shouldn't do things that are highly private or require you to put in, really, just like private, important details about your life because they can potentially be stolen if there's a bad player in the vicinity that's looking at these things. On a public Wi-Fi network, some things you should do if you're using it often. You can use a VPN. So a VPN stands for a virtual private network, and it helps secure your internet connection. These can just be downloaded from the App Store, and you can, look and see the reviews for them. But basically, if you think of your internet connection as like this, like stream or like a line, say it's like, it's a wire. A VPN basically just puts like a cover over that wire and protects it from people getting into it. So it's another layer of protection. The other benefit of a VPN, if it ever interests you, is that you can, it basically hides your IP address or gives you a fake IP address. So it protects your device. And you can get one that's from a different country. And basically you can access information from a different country that you might not be able to access in the States. So say you're watching a show and you want to be able to watch a show, but it's not available in the States for some reason, but it is available in the UK, you can use a virtual private network to basically masquerade as your device being in the UK, and then you can access that stuff. It's not really as much of a thing when you're in the States because you guys have access to basically everything. Only visit HTTPS sites, right? So these are websites where at the beginning of the URL, www. Blah, blah, blah. Before that, it should say HTTPS // colon, something like that. You should, as a rule, that you should always be doing this, only connecting to HTTPS websites. But this is just especially true. It's something to really think about when you're using that public Wi-Fi, and then your personal data is extra vulnerable. Use two-factor authentication. Again, this should always apply. Two-factor authentication when you set up different, a second kind of roadblock for logging into important accounts that it needs to send you an email or a text message in order to log in, right? Always important, but especially important when you are using public networks, because if someone, gets your data and they get your password, not as harmful if you have two-factor authentication set up, because they won't be able to get through the second step of the authentication process, which is confirming the login or whatever it is. And stop devices from automatically connecting to open Wi-Fi networks. So these settings can be accessed in the settings app, right? The little gear icon on the home screen of your iPad. If you go to Wi-Fi settings, there's this one setting that says ask to join networks and something like that. You can just turn that off so it won't ask, because it does ask you to join these networks, but sometimes you accidentally click on one because it just like keeps popping up. And I've done this before too. So just turn that off so you don't get it. That just means that if you are going to use public Wi-Fi, you'll have to do it manually, but that's fine anyway, because you don't want it just connecting accidentally to some random network that you don't know if it's safe or not. So yeah, go into those settings if you're going to use public Wi-Fi and go to ask to join network and turn that off. So you have to do it completely manually. It won't prompt you or anything like that. All right. And as I said before, if you do need extra help with any of this, or you have extra questions, you can always call us at Cyber Seniors at 844-217-3057. Or as I showed you before, you could call SmartMove at 1-877-298-8998. They are a great resource for finding out all sorts of information about your internet cellular data plans. And they really simplify things and make them easy to understand. So they're a fantastic resource when you're considering this stuff. Call them or go to their website, whatever you feel most comfortable with.